Okay, I think we are now live. Yes, we are live. Thank you very much. So, very apt for our topic of conversation around dealing with uncertainty, setbacks, and trying to thrive in that environment. A few technical issues, but I hope that most of you have been able to navigate yourselves across to the new link. We had some technical issues, so apologies to anyone impacted by that. We will get started now. I'm hoping as we move forward, more and more of you can come across this link and still enjoy and attend the event. So, as I was saying the first time around before we had the technical issues, I'm super excited about this event today for two main reasons. One, the topic itself, and two, our guest. We have a really special guest today, and we're super excited to talk to, and I'll be introducing him properly in a second. So just before we get started, let's just remind ourselves on the topic of conversation today. What are we actually going to be covering? So really, the focus is to cover three main topic areas that are components that actually most of us grapple with on a day-to-day basis from our personal and professional lives. The first one's around actually how do we achieve and sustain high performance? What does it take to do that? What is realistic? What can we aim for, and how do we create a process to achieving high performance? And what does that mean? The second one's around building resilience. How do we actually build resilience as an individual? And the third topic here is going to be about uncertainty. How do we actually, as individuals, thrive in what is an increasingly uncertain environment and operate in those environments? What I really want to do today, and why I've specifically picked the guest that we have today, is to try and cut through a lot of the quick fixes and trends and advice that we're impacted with on a day-to-day basis that are just very unrealistic. From celebrity culture to social media, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations and a focus on achieving things immediately. We want immediacy, we want results immediately. If someone offers us something that we can do in, get fit in, 3 weeks, how do we achieve that? Everyone's going to click on that and have a look on how they get that result quickly. What I want to do today is actually understand, how do you do this? How do you build these components of performance, resilience, and operating in uncertainty, and sustain that over a long period of time? What does it take to do that? So let me just quickly introduce my guest today. Professional MMA fighter for one championship, Amir Khan. He's going to be joining us. Super excited to talk to him.
Mixed martial artist from one championship. Tourette's is a neurological disorder which causes involuntary movements across your whole body. Whenever it's like an itch on your body that you can't scratch, you can never scratch away. I was always different. Every day I go to school, I have to worry about who's gonna make fun of me, who's gonna tease me. But as I go through my life, and then I kind of find like there's something special me, something different about me. Like I have like that burning desire to get better in whatever I do, and it grows over time. I realized I was just like trying to feel sorry for myself. Failures happen, right? I'm not invisible, and I have to keep on learning and growing. You should be working on to improve yourself. Every person that I am today, everyone has something special in them. You have to have the attitude of never giving up, going through failures. It's easy to be positive when you're winning, but to have the ultimate self-belief when you're losing, because even in the lowest point of my life, I somehow have that belief in me that it will be okay. I will turn this around and make a better picture of my life.
So what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm super grateful to have me on this webinar. Yeah, so that's me. So like let me begin with like my story on why I actually started doing martial arts. As you guys know from watching the video, I dealt with having Tourette syndrome, a neurological disorder, and through that I faced a lot of bullying, faced a lot of scrutiny from my friends and also my teachers. I remember one phrase that my teacher said to me, that you will never be amount to anything. So when coming from a teacher, it really hurts me, and I took it personally. But then when I went home, I talked to my dad about it. Thankfully, I have a dad who guided me the right way. He told me to find a source and find an outlet and use that negative energy and turn it into something positive. So that's what I did. So when I stumbled upon mixed martial art after my first session, I never felt anything like that before. Like the effects was immediate. I felt confident physically and mentally. So I knew I just gotta continue search on for the feeling over and over again. So that led me to a really amazing career. I'm still fighting right now for one championship. And beside fighting, recently I also been talking to corporate clients and companies about mental toughness, because I believe the principles that I have learned from my experience and through education could help them in their personal and work life too. So yeah, so that's a
Awesome.
small introduction about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Amir. Been super excited about this event and chatting to you today. And I also understand that you've got your fight lined up for the end of September. How's your training
Mhm.
going?
Yeah, training has been good. I was actually in Europe having a holiday, having a good time, and then I suddenly got called up for a fight, and I knew I didn't want to miss any opportunity I can get. So straight away, I sat down at night when my kids was asleep, and I planned the whole thing, planned my flight camp, planned my return ticket back. So with a good plan, I structured a good fight camp, and right now I'm just like grinding hard each day, grinding hard, but also uh, grinding in the right way as well.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for giving up your time today. So let's jump straight into the content. So look, when we talk about the topic of high performance, and in my professional life, whenever I've been in roles where we've talked about the topic within sort of large organizations, and from a training development point of view, mental toughness has been, a term thrown around. And when we think about professional sport, and in particular, a fighter, right, a professional fighter, you can have the physicality, you can have the skills, but to perform, you've got to have that, there's this, strong view, you've got to have that mental toughness. But what I wanted to start off with is it's easy for us to say, hey, build mental toughness, right? And we hear that talked about a lot. You need to build mental toughness. But what I wanted to, find out from you is, from your perspective and from your experience, what is mental toughness? Like, what would you define that as? What are the components of it? Because I think that will really help people then think through, okay, I want to get mentally tough, but what does that mean and how do I get there?
Mhm. So let me actually just begin saying what mental toughness is not. So I would say mental toughness is not like waking up 3 a.m. in the middle of the night and doing push-up and burpees and going for a workout. Mental toughness is definitely not having a really restrictive diet. Mental toughness, in my definition, can be broken down into character traits and behavior that an individual possesses. And I believe it's not inherited. This can be trained. So mental toughness is something you develop, not inherit. So let's get over to the next slide on the character traits. So I use this 5C framework to build mental toughness. So Anurag, will you agree that if you define a mentally tough individual, if you picture a mentally tough individual, he will be calm, collected. He will be able to react to stress appropriately. Am I right to say?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So mental toughness individual has high level of composure. But what does actually composure really means? So for example, when you have to perform under pressure, I'll use you an example. When I have to perform in front of thousands of people, when I have to step in the arena, in front of the cage, when millions of people are watching, it's definitely different from what I do in training when no one's watching. So I have to learn how to be able to compose myself under that situation in order for me to perform it at my best. Because so often when we step in the cage, our heart is racing, our heartbeat is pounding, we can't control our emotions, and that causes us to make mistakes in the fight. So by practicing a simple exercise like what I really do, I do daily. It's called centering exercise. It's basically like a breath work strategy that I use each day that I develop. So I simply just hold my right hand across my chest, across my heart chest, and my left hand on my belly, and I just focus my breath, trying to just feel my body, bring my heart rate down. So with that consistent practice, whenever I step into the cage, whenever I feel that nervous, I feel that anxiety, I go back to my centering exercise. And because I train that every day, every single day I do this breath work. When I need it, with a snap of a finger, I can get back to my breath work and it will calm me down. So that's an example of composure. And mentally tough individual has a high level of focus. They are able to focus on the present, on the task in hand. So focusing on what it matters. Because so often when we are doing work, when we need to perform, we tend to have a lot of thoughts cluttered all in our head. Especially now in the social media era, so many notifications on our phone, our attention span uh, has gone down tremendously. So I believe like mental tough individuals has a high level of concentration, and they really need to know how to zone out the world and focus on what matters. And the other traits that they commonly have is they have high level of confidence, having self-belief and trust themselves during stressful situation. But how do you actually like develop this confidence? I believe confidence, you're not born with it. It can be developed through training. For example, I was never really a confident person. Like if I tell you, when I was in school, like at the age of 15, I didn't even dare to raise up my hand to tell the teacher that I want to go to the toilet. That's uh, how low self-esteem I had. So, but with practice, by forcing myself to do things that are scary, I developed the confidence. And the fourth trait is capability, able to handle mistake and challenges when it matters, able to react to challenges positively instead of seeing a challenge as a threat. We see challenges as an opportunity for growth, because we need tough situations. We need to face tough time in order to grow to the next level. So I feel we need to have that mindset. We need to reframe our mind and see challenge as a uh, as something that is positive instead of a threat. And last but not least, cohesion. Why I believe cohesion is really important, because no matter how tough we are, we need support from your peers. We need support from your family, from your friends, from your wife, from your spouse. So especially during stressful times, one of the techniques that I use is actually simply finding someone to talk about my stressful day. By talking about my stressful day, immediately you let the burden out of your chest and you feel better immediately. So I believe these five traits are one of the main traits that build a mentally tough individual. So composure, being really composed, calm under any situation, having high level focus, having high level of confidence, able to cope with adversity, and able not to be afraid to be vulnerable around others. So let's move on to the behaviors part of it. So the three behaviors in order to achieve high performance. Number one, I believe that is highly crucial. It's effective goal setting. Why we need goal setting? So imagine you're in an airplane and the pilot do not have a destination. Like he doesn't have the map towards your destination. No matter how early he gets all the passenger in the plane, no matter how fast the plane is, he will never get there because he hasn't have anything planned out. So that's why I feel goal setting is important, because we can't simply work hard. We need to work hard towards something. And the second one it's imagery. Imagery is basically a form of visualization. So a form of visualization, we need to learn how to be creative in our minds. We need to have the vision for our future, but not only for our future, we use this technique to mentally rehearse situations that we feel anxiety towards. For example, if you have to do a talk at an event, if you're feeling really nervous and anxious about it, close your eyes, repeat and mentally rehearse the scenario until you feel more confident about it. So basically, you can get so much mental reps with it, and it's a highly misused, is a highly underused tool, I believe. And last but not least, self-talk. Watch how you talk to yourself. It's really important because you don't want to talk down to yourself. You want to be encouraging. You want to be positive, and you want you to be an inspiration to yourself. So I believe this is the top three behaviors that you find in a mentally tough individual. Sorry, Anurag, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I really like the framework and the structured way you've sort of built this sort of methodology around the topic. I think one of the things I'm taken by is when you talked about, you know, the high performance components, right? You talked a lot about, hey, it's practice and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, right? And even these behaviors you're talking about here in terms of goal setting and visualization, these are difficult things. And when I think about high performance, often we focus on the outcome, right? We focus on the performance event, right? Whether that's for you, the fight itself, right? Or whether that's for someone else, as you said, you know, delivering in a meeting or delivering a piece of work or in a personal life, right? What I'm interested in is, you know, not that end outcome. It's what is the journey to getting there? So, you know, often what we see and what people talk about is the end outcome. Hey, here, this is look how well I've performed. This is the outcome, right? I'm really interested in, well, what has that person taken to get to that point, right? And how do they build the perseverance? Because most people who perform highly would have actually behind the scenes, what a lot of people won't see is the failures, right? The difficulty, the challenge, you know, the grit that they've had to go through to achieve that. So when they say, hey, I want to perform like that, often they don't understand what it's taken to get there. So for you individually, you know, what has driven you, right, to continue to practice these things, continue to overcome setbacks, to push through challenges where you failed, to actually then get to that end outcome where you're a high performing athlete? What's driven you to achieve that?
So I don't want to bring up back my past, but let me take you back to memory lane during my school days again. So yeah, I never knew why, like, to be honest, even teachers were so negative. Like, maybe because if now when I look back then, like, I wouldn't say this to any child. So basically, so what really drive me, one comment stuck to my head till this day. So when I started doing martial arts, and then because I loved it and enjoyed it, and I felt it bring me joy and bring me the confidence I never had, and I felt something special. I I was so dedicated to it that I sometimes get really tired in school. And then one day my teacher inquired about, he's telling me, why are you always so tired in school? Do you not sleep? Then I explained, like, oh, I started training at night. I trained the whole night, so I get to bed a bit late, but I'm mostly tired from the training. And I'm trying my best to focus right here. And what he said to me, he said, Amir, if you continue in this path, you're gonna end up selling peanuts and being crippled on the street. And that comment really got to me. It's like, it's the worst you can say to any child who finds something that he loves and wants to excel on it. So that what really drives me. So like that kind of negative comment, what I learned from my dad, I turn into something positive. I turn it into a challenge. I say, okay, let me prove to you that I'll get a name out of this. It will lead me to somewhere. So with that, when I continued this journey, when I started fighting, soon I began. A lot of kids are in my position, but they're not guided in the right way. So my inspiration became from the negative fuel to the kids that look up to me. So so they are saying, if Amir can do that, Amir can turn his life around. Why can't I? I was like them, and look what he become. So I feel that what drives me every single day. That's why, like, no matter how many times I fail, I always get back up. There's fighting. It's always a saying: you get knocked down 8 times, you come back up 9 times. But for me, it's like no matter how many times I get knocked down, I'll always be come up and grow stronger than ever. So that's where I really get my grit, and I feel the grit is in everyone. Everyone just have to search for it. You have to have the reason. Why are you pushing it so hard every day?
That's good. And so that last point is really critical for me. So your view is that, because obviously you've got, you've dealt with your Tourette's, you've dealt with this, this lack of belief that other people had around you, people's views that, hey, you would, you're going to fail. And that really was what lit up that fire inside you, right? To push. So when you were, I guess, facing challenges, you remembered those things, right?
Yeah.
But for other people who say haven't got, how would you go about finding that source of drive, right? So, not everyone faces the same level of challenges, right? But when I meet people with that drive, often they've got a story, right? There's something that's fueling them, fueling some sort of fire inside their belly that really drives them on. For people that haven't found that yet, can they build that grit? Can they find it? And how would they go about finding it?
I truly believe everyone, like I said, everyone has that grit in them, has that dog in them. They just gotta find it. So I believe soul searching is and actually like a crucial important task, and you just need to know how to do it. I feel you need to spend time just taking out your notebooks, cut all the distractions from your life, like say your phone, your spouse, your kids. You have to go somewhere quiet and really be in tune with your thoughts. Write down, like, let's say you really want to be like a good leader, but you need to ask yourself why do you really want to be a good leader. And if it's just like monetary value, if it's just because you want to be rich, you have to dig deeper, because so often when you have extrinsic motivation, it doesn't get you through tough times. So there must be a reason why you want to lead. What do you have to prove? Maybe it's not to anyone else, maybe it's to yourself. So I believe that with that soul searching exercise, it doesn't take a day to find out. You just be constantly just be in tune with your thoughts, write it down, and yeah. So you need to find your why, your purpose. Without your purpose, it's really hard to find that grit. It's really hard to find that reason to push you when you like faced with tough times. So soul searching, journal your thoughts, face them, question your thoughts. If you can't really question your thoughts, talk to someone. Talk to someone you trust. You can't just talk to anyone, but talk to someone you trust, and maybe you guys can brainstorm something together. And I also believe no one's perfect, and everyone has his own journey. When I was younger, I used to compare I used to compare us. That guy became a world champion at age of 20, and when I was 20, was not a world champion, and I feel bad about myself. But then I realized, like, everyone has his own time, everyone has his own journey. Everyone will be successful in their way if they are willing to find out, if they're willing to work for it. So yeah, so that's how I feel you can develop and build that grit if you have trouble finding that motivation to like achieve like great things in life.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think that leads us quite nicely into what I think is a really key topic for today, and it will be increasingly the reality, which is around operating in an uncertain environment, right? So when I was going up in the early stages of my career, one critical piece of advice that I was given was you need to be able to thrive in ambiguity. You need to be able to operate when things aren't clear, and bring clarity to those situations, right? And deal with uncertainty. And if there's a problem, run towards it, don't run away from it. You know, these are a couple of critical pieces of advice that have always sort of stayed with me. Now, as a fighter, your whole life and being is uncertain, right? Whether that's before a fight, whether, you know, when's your fight going to happen, who you're going to be fighting, then obviously within the fight, right? Huge amount of uncertainty. You can plan as much as you want, but when you get into that ring, you don't know what's going to happen, right? So dealing with uncertainty for you and from a sporting environment is just a day-to-day aspect of living. And I think actually increasingly that's the case for everyone. If we think about the world we operate in, political uncertainty, economic uncertainty, climate uncertainty, there's a lot of uncertainty. And if you think about professionals that might be on this call, there's a lot of uncertainty around, you know, am I going to be in the same job and career in the next 6 months, right? So how have you, if you could give us some tips and some tools you've used, right, in terms of navigating uncertainty and still achieving high performance, or still being able to operate and perform in that uncertain environment?
Yeah, I think I got an excellent example, because being an athlete, being a mixed martial art fighter, like especially being in a big organization, everyone's chasing for your spot. Everyone wants your spot. So when I was signed early on, after a few fights, I began to feel a feeling of uncertainty, being worried, questioning myself. What if I ever don't perform the way they want me to perform? Will they kick me out? Will I lose my job? Will I lose everything I work for? I've been training hard since I was like 14. Like all this will be gone to waste. And then initially, when I felt that uncertain feeling, what I did, I just ignored, like most people, just ignore it. Oh, I'll deal with it another time. But I think about 2-3 years passed by, it began to affect my fights. The uncertainty feeling, like in your chest, it builds up, and it shows in my performance. I wasn't being able to perform at my best because I'm constantly worried about, oh, am I doing the fight that the promoters want me? Should I fight the way they want me to fight? Am I competent enough for my skill? Then it becomes so bad until I had to kind of source out to a sports psychologist. Thankfully, I got in touch with a really good one. And through talking to him, I began to face my uncertainty. So I began to face the feeling inside. Like what I did, I faced the feeling. I actually write down in my journal, write down thoughts by talking to him, and write down why am I facing this feeling? There must be a reason. I wouldn't be facing the feeling for no reason. Maybe because in my skill set, a small particular area, I feel insecure about my skill set. I'm not competent enough. So what I can do is maybe I can put in just a slight extra work each day, like 30 minutes extra work in that particular skill set to be competent. So I won't really have to worry about not performing. So I began to focus on things within my control. So once I start doing it, I start acting upon it, the uncertainty feeling goes away slowly by slowly, because I know I did everything in my power to perform at my best. So I prepared, like I left no doubts. I covered every single area. If the organization don't want me, then it's too bad for them, because with my skill, there's so many organizations that will come out to me as well. So I believe the main takeaway from it is to focus on things within your control. You can't control the externals. There's no point worrying about it. All you got to do is focusing on things you can control, which is your skills. Build your skills. You become so good that you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about getting a job somewhere else. But then in the end, that's where people start up companies and start working for themselves. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I found in this topic has been scenario planning. So in terms of uncertainty, you know, you might go into an environment, like if I take for you, you know, you're training for a fight, you think, this is how you envisage the fight running. This is the fight you're fighting against. You obviously will watch videos, you'll think about, and you'll train for a particular type of fight, right?
Yeah. Mm.
But at any moment, something could happen in that fight that could be different, that could change, and it could happen in a few seconds. And I found in a professional environment, if you take a similar situation where you plan, you prepare for a particular moment or event or delivery, for example, this event, you prepare for the event, you have a technical issue at the beginning, how do you adapt to that situation? I found scenario planning to be really powerful in terms of thinking through what are all the things that could happen? Can I be creative and think about all the different avenues this could go down? What are the things that could happen in this environment? And then try and prepare for as many of those that seem likely enough to happen. Obviously, you can't prepare for every single scenario. Do you use that type of scenario planning, and have you used that before?
Yes, like exactly. This is exactly what we have to use in our fights. Initially, I didn't start off using this, but with experiences, then I started having. When I go in a fight, I have a plan A, which is my optimal plan, which what I want to do optimally, and then I have like plan B, C, D. So I really have like contingency plan just for the worst case scenario. Because also for mixed martial arts, it's very uncertain. Like it all takes one punch at the chin. It all takes a second of distraction for you to go down. So you never know what might happen. So I will give an example of my recent fight, not recent, but my last two fight against Takahashi. I I fought him going the plan like we trying to outbox him, go heavy in my hands. But the moment the bell ring, before I could land any punch, he kicked a well-timed calf kick on my calf, and that kick landed so perfectly, my whole leg was immobilized immediately. So my whole game plan of using my punch to overwhelm him has gone off the bus. So uh, initially I tried to like grit it out, but then after like halfway through the round, I realized I have no more power in my kicks, no more power in my punches because I'm like fighting on one leg. So I got really to make quick decision making. I switch up my game plan within the end of the round to just clinch him and pin him against the cage, to hold him there and just land some elbows. The fight in the end, it turned out my way. I got the decision, but it wasn't the most entertaining fight. But I had to do what I had to do to get the W because of uh, that worst come to worst scenario. You know what I mean? So we did prepare. Worst come to worst, we're just gonna make it a boring fight. We're gonna slug it out. So yeah, thankfully I did have that plan. So because with a plan, you can make quick decision making on the spot. But without a plan, you're not sure what to do. If you don't train for it, you'll be like, oh, what's next? I think I'm in trouble. I think I might just tap out or something.
Yeah. And what I love about scenario planning is it gives you a sense of control. It's proactive. It's not becoming a victim to your uncertain environment, right? Because it's very easy to say, well, this environment is so uncertain. What can I do about it? And you sort of suffer that uncertainty, right? Whereas putting some of this structure in place in terms of scenarios, contingency planning, gives you that sense of control. And when we put that sense of control in place, we're doing something proactive, and immediately I think our mindset changes to something a lot more positive. Amazing to hear about. I couldn't even imagine in that first moment all of that training, all of that effort, and then in a second it's just like, sorry, all of that goes. I've got to completely go a different way. Yeah, no, that's I can't imagine what that must be like. So on this topic, and I think it's a great link to it, talking about how you performed in that fight. When we talk about high performance, I think a lot of us get into this mindset of, and this expectation that we have to perform highly all the time, right? How do we, and we put pressure on ourselves around every time we have to come into work, or we, for you in terms of sport, actually performing all the time, and how do I get high performance? And I didn't get to that level before, and trying to strive for this perfection. So first of all, I just want to understand from you in terms of what is realistic in terms of high performance, right? How, we talked a lot about how we get there, what traits to take, is it realistic to say, hey, I'm just a high performer all the time, and that's my aim? I want to perform all the time, right? Give me a bit of thoughts on that in terms of what should we be aiming for when it comes to high performance? What's realistic? And I guess some practical techniques maybe, or routines, maybe just on a day-to-day basis that you practice to try and, I guess, make sure that you perform when you need it.
Yeah, perfect. Like what you say, perform when you need it. I feel like people give an unrealistic expectation that they have to perform at their best every single day, which is, to be honest, almost impossible. So I feel that's where also planning comes into place, because you need to plan like what season are you in, like in the business season. Is it a growth season? Is it for you? Do you need to be in your optimal state right now? So like I'll just give you an example. Like if I don't have any fight, I don't have to perform my best, I will go into like a growth mindset, trying to improve my skill in different areas. Let's say if I want to achieve high, I have a date that I want to achieve a high performance. Like example, my next fight, September 30th. How do I achieve that? So what I really love is towards closer to the match, I do a lot of simulation training, which basically I train exactly like a match day. Because in a match day, you got an announcer announcing your name, you walk out to your favorite music, the screams, the all the fans and the crowd is screaming out their lungs out. And when you go down to the cage, the referee pats you down, and then he let you enter the cage. So I go through those little steps, those small little details. I rehearse physically. If I don't get a chance to rehearse physically, I rehearse mentally. What I like about mental rehearsal is that you can actually feel the emotion. Like when I rehearse mentally, sometimes I get cold sweat. I get my heart start to race. I put a heart rate monitor on, my heart start to elevate it just by thinking about the event, thinking about my pre warm up, thinking the announcer ringing my name, and getting familiar for me to react in those scenarios. So when I go into the fight, when the announcer ring my name, when my heart raises, I know it's normal. It's my body preparing to go for battle. I won't be freaked out. I won't be having like, oh shit, why am I feeling like this? I never felt like this in my whole life. But because I already mental rehearse, okay, this is just a process before I step in. This is normal feeling. When my heart raises, what I do, practice my centering exercise, bring my state low. If some days, like I also plan like contingency plan. Some days I can't get hyped up enough. I'm too relaxed. Sometimes I get too relaxed, or maybe I have to play a music that I like to hype myself up. Maybe I'll do like 10 push-ups before I walk out to hype myself up. So I feel with this simulation training, you cancel all doubt. So whenever you get into whenever you need to perform high performance, and especially when that high performance have demands a lot of pressure, you're able to execute as close as possible to what you expected.
Yeah, I think that's it. The great point for me is the first one in terms of we can't see high performance as something that we can operate in all the time, right? Our focus really is around how do we touch that, right? How do we get to that point? How do we touch that line of high performance when we need it, right? And to build to that point, it's actually having a lot of days where you're not performing, right? To get to the point where actually you're able to perform when you need it. And that simulation piece, I think, is super interesting around how do you recreate that environment to get you comfortable with how you're going to feel when you actually get there on the day, right? Yep. And I think hugely powerful. And I think just on this point around achieving high performance, and I'm sure you find it, I find on a regular daily basis, whether you're on a social media platform, whether you're reading some magazine, whether you're confronted with some sort of advertising, there's a lot of sort of quick fixes, right? And I mentioned this at the beginning. How do we, we're all, I think now, a lot of us, and it's sort of a nature of the society we live in today, is we want things quickly, right? We want immediate results, right? We don't want to wait. Telling someone, hey, it's going to take 5, 10, 15 years to achieve something, right, isn't going to excite that many people. If you tell someone, hey, if you do this thing for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, you can achieve amazing results, you'll get more people trying that, right? Than even if the 15-year has a better success story. So how, this for me is, how do we become consistent? I mean, because most people will try a lot of these things. Let's say they come out of this event and say, let me try simulation, or let me try imagery and visualization, right? And they might do it for a day. They might do it for a week. But how do you build something that becomes an embedded behavior and you can sustain over the long term, right? How do you get to that point? What does it take to do that?
So I believe I'll go back to finding your purpose, finding your why, and the reason why you want to build that behaviors. Because if you look at a example, like let's say after this talk, you want to okay, I want to start my journey to become mentally tougher, and how you do that, it's actually what I do with, I'll just give you an example. What I do with my clients is I have a mental toughness report that based on the 5 C's, it's a questionnaire based report where you can fill it up, and then you can obviously the report has its flaws. It's only give you accurate answer if you are honest with the report, because it's a questionnaire. It's you and the report. But of course, if you want to get the best out of it, you'll be completely honest. So it gives you like a breakdown on your strengths and weaknesses. Let's say, because it's impossible to improve all areas in one shot, you just got to pick one. Let's say you want to react to stress better. You want to be composed under pressure. So you need to understand, you find your why. Why do you need this peak performance? Do you want to maybe start, I don't know, start speaking, I start speaking in front of thousands of people? You want to have that vision yourself? You want to be like a motivational speaker? You want to be like an informative speaker? Let's say in any industry. So you got to find what's the reason you want to do first. That's important. And once you find that why, then you have to be disciplined, but I believe with small little actions, as small as 1 minute per day. The goal is to make it a lifestyle, to make it daily, so it becomes like a habit. It becomes a habit that you don't have to think about it subconsciously. You just constantly progressing, constantly working on that, like to improve your composure skills. And then once you start the small actions, over time, imagine 1-2 years, you do 1-2 minutes of a certain task. It really compounds, and you see how big a change it is. And last, I feel you have to build accountability. You have to find a tribe that you can trust. Find like-minded individuals that will be really honest with you, and because we all have those days where we don't really want to do it, even though we know why. We just feel demotivated due to externals or due to maybe conflict, like personal conflicts. That's where your tribe is important. They will bring you up. They will call you out if you're being lazy. They will say, come on, man, remember your why. Remember why you started. Keep going. You won't regret it. So I believe like finding that tribe is a crucial piece. And if you can't find a tribe, that's where people sometimes hire coaches for it. But really find your own tribe. I think that's the best way of accountability you can build.
Yeah, no, I love that concept of compounding gains, right? From a financial services background, think about compounding interest, and I love that, and I love the sort of component of, hey, look at the people you're surrounding yourselves with, right? Are those people elevating, supporting, and challenging, right? Challenging you, and are they being positive impact, right, on the things you're trying to achieve? We're going to move into the Q&A, Amir, and we've got a really interesting question, which is actually a topic that I've had many discussions with a lot of people that I know, and it's a topic that comes up a lot. You just talked there about continuous improvement. Should we focus on, and this is a question from the audience, should we focus on improving the areas of weakness? You talked about, hey, the questionnaire that you get sort of strengths and weakness. As individuals, should we be focusing on addressing our weaknesses, and that should be our area of focus? Or should we focus on, hey, I have these strengths, let me build and leverage these strengths? Have you got a view on that in terms of, is there one better than the other? Is it dependent on time? How would you approach that?
For me, it is a tricky question, because there's some saying like, don't waste time on your weaknesses, focus on your strength. And some saying work on your weaknesses, like the strength will be there. So I always see my life as a baseline. I use this methodology. So I see a baseline. Let's say has I won't call it, I don't like to, okay, as I say weaknesses, but I don't really call it weaknesses. It's just my baseline is lower for that particular skill. My baseline is higher in the other skill. What I want to do over time is tackle every aspect of it and increase each baseline to be higher and higher. And of course, your strength will generally be higher each time you work on it. So you will have a higher baseline if you look in general than your weaknesses. But you do not want to ignore those weaknesses because you'll never know when you need those skills as well. And also when do you prioritize what to work on? It's depending on what's coming, what's priority, what's in the next 3 months. Like for example, like I'm fighting a striker, so I might prioritizing more grappling submissions attack in these 2 months. So that's my priority. It's not that I'm not really focusing on improving my striking skill, not focusing improving my striking defensive capabilities, but because of my opponent, because of the event I have to tackle, I choose to focus an area which I need to use in that fight. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, another question we've got is really around. You talked a lot about daily practice, and I think there's a lot of great information there around. Hey, it's about repeat and just doing things over the long term, and you get that compounding benefit. But that can also be pretty monotonous, right, Amir? I mean, doing the same thing, coming to training every day, or for someone in a professional environment, practicing the same thing every day over a long period of time, that can get quite dull. How do you deal with the monotony of continuous practice?
So one thing the high performers do really well, they tend to enjoy that routine. They tend to enjoy I don't know, it's just like it's something once you get into that routine, you will actually start to enjoy the same task over and over again because you get better at it because it compounds, you get really better, you will take on new challenges. So you're not really doing the same thing every day. The skill is like the goal is the same to improve in a certain area, but actually you're taking on different challenges. Like I'm training every day, but I'm not doing the same thing every day. I'm working, okay, let's say I'm working on my speed for my strength conditioning this month. I'm working on my grappling this month. There's so many sub areas that around the bigger picture. So I believe you have to find the sub areas to keep it interesting. It all leads up to the same goal, but you have to, this is up to you and maybe your co-workers or your leader around you to kind of brainstorm what are the sub areas where I can maximize and reach the same goal that I desired to.
Nice. Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then probably our last question, but I think a really good one. So often high performers, especially in sport, I find, and in certain sports, you hear a lot about, hey, to perform, sometimes you've actually got to be selfish, right? You've really just got to focus on yourself, right? You've got to focus on performing. And let's take it into a corporate, enterprise environment. I'm an individual. I want to perform. I want to succeed. I want to, develop through my career, and I want to perform. That's a lot of focus on myself, right? On, hey, me. I want to be better. In an environment where collaboration is also important. Thinking about others, empathy, team, right? How do you balance, hey, individual performance with sort of collaboration and sort of consideration of others, right? While you've got this quite focused, and at times I'm sure you have to have a little bit of a selfish mindset. And how do you balance that or
I believe
reconcile
this
that?
is I believe this is where effective communication is crucial. Like you need to tell people around you that saying, okay, this is my goal, and I'm not selfish. I'm not being an asshole towards you guys, but I'm selfish towards my time because I need to use this time to work things, work to work to bigger things, that will actually benefit them. So if they can see the benefit in them as well, if you can find the benefit in them, I feel they will be more like supportive on, okay, let's give Anurag his time, let's give Amir his time, because he's working for a bigger picture. And when you're clear about it, so you don't have to feel bad about, oh, maybe I have to spend more time with him, because when they really need, they know, and when they need you, you will be there for them. But what you're just being clear on your objective and why you're behaving a certain way, because you're working towards uh, something bigger. So I feel this open-ended communication is really important to make everyone clear that we are in this together on the same path.
Nice. Okay, look, we're coming to the end. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our session. Just to sort of end things and leave people with some final takeaways, if you were going to summarize, say, a few things that you would want people to take away from this session, what would those sort of key things be?
So I would start, the first thing you got to do is find that purpose. If you're asking yourself, like, what is he talking about? Like, you don't need a purpose. Like, you have to take the journal, go walk out in the park and write it down and say, what's your why? Why, like, I don't know, what do you want to achieve in this earth? Like, what's the reason you're put here? Like, you can't just be just working and just aimlessly with no goal, and like I don't know, I feel it's really like it's really selfish to do this for yourself if you don't really find that purpose. So I believe my number one takeaway, have to find your why. And number two, I feel anyone can achieve that same level of drive. I've talked to people, they just tell me, Amir, I don't know, but I just wasn't born this way. Maybe I was born too comfortable. Even if you're born comfortable, you have your challenges. Everyone has challenges. It's just different level of challenges. You just gotta, like I say, face it, find the challenges, and then develop that drive that will turn you into something unstoppable. And last but not least, I would say this is really important, is focus things within your control. When I start focusing everything within my control, all the externals really like doesn't really bother me. That's why like I'm so grateful that I had this mindset before COVID happened. Because when COVID happened, like I have like my accountability partners, like my tribe, right? We like had the best time. We set challenges. Okay, we say we're gonna do a lot of outdoor workouts, get really fit. That's one thing. And then we start doing a lot of reading. And once we reading, we send our notes to a group chat so we can learn from each other. We do all those things that we don't have the time and luxury for it. So to be honest, during COVID was like, I think that's where I grew the most. And actually where I had this idea, like, oh, I can principles for mixed martial art, I can help the people in like the work setting as well. So I feel when you start focusing on things within control, you will see like nothing really in the world really matters. You don't really pay attention to the externals. So yeah,
Fantastic.
that's my top three takeaway.
No, I really appreciate that. And for me, what really struck me was, first of all, I really, was happy to see that your view is that, grit, determination is something that can be developed, right? And if there's the desire to do so, right, there has to be that, and that's where your why comes from, right? But I think it's really encouraging for everyone to not just say, hey, well, it's just not for me, right? I think everyone can achieve that. I really like the concept of compounding gains, right? Small gains. And I think that's hugely powerful. I think difficult to actually execute, and I think all of us have found that in terms of actually being consistent. I think it's probably one of the biggest challenges people find in terms of those gains, and just sticking with something for the long term, and not just needing immediate results. But that compounding component was really interesting for me. And I really like the concept of, not becoming a victim of uncertainty, right? So all those tools and techniques you talked about in terms of visualization and imagery and scenario planning are really powerful components for me around how do you take control of uncertainty? How do you operate in an ambiguous environment? How do you not become a victim? And I think as soon as you don't allow yourself to become a victim of all of this turmoil and lack of clarity around you, the feeling it gives you inside of just feeling that content, like you don't know what might happen, but you've done everything that you can do to prepare yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And then what happens will happen. You can't control that, right? Mm-hmm. But I think as long as you've had that being proactive, I think is something that I really liked about what you talked about. But look, just to finish things up, we really enjoyed the session, Amir. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure everyone who's on the session today joins me in wishing you luck for your fight at the end of September. I'm hoping that I'll be there to watch you get a win. Yeah, really inspiring. So thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Yeah.
All the best. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate it. If you've got any questions for myself or Amir, please get in touch. We've got some information here on Amir, but you can also just message us through LinkedIn or email if you have any follow-up questions. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Outsized event.